Hello and welcome to Stop the Crash and the Cravings. This is going to be all about one of the most important pillars of health for a happy gut, a happy mind, and longevity. So this is going to all wrap into steady energy, improved mood, and a healthy metabolism. When we focus on balancing our blood sugar, so much improves all around us. And the ripple effect is so beautiful in our physiology, in our mental health, in our gut health. So I'm so glad you're here, because if you put into practice what we're going to learn today, you will see an increase in energy, an increase in mood, and a healthy metabolism. There's so many positive effects when we work on balancing our blood sugar. So why does this matter? Because it affects our mood, it affects our energy, it improves our metabolism, right? Because metabolism is how we take food and turn it into energy. And it accelerates healing, because when we have wonky, wacky blood sugar levels, this leads to a stress response in the body. And when we are in a stress response, this downregulates healing. So when we calm and regulate the blood sugar, we allow the body to feel safe, and this allows us to accelerate our healing. And when it's out of balance, this leads to things like fatigue, exhaustion, burnout. We're not able to turn our food into energy. This can lead to cravings. So down here with this little chart I drew, you can see, right, there's the spike and then there's the crash. And we want to be between these little green lines. And if we're super wacky, wonky, we're all over up and down. And when we hit this crash, this leads to massive cravings. Also mood swings, right? It's like if you are someone who gets really hangry, or you can't go without food, or you get really tired after food, these are all signs that something's going on with this key pillar. When it's out of balance, it can lead to weight gain. So when it's in balance, the sweet spot, right? What is blood sugar when it's balanced? This leads to things like steady energy, calm mood, clear focus, healing, right? Accelerated healing time. And it also regulates our appetite. A lot of times people come to me and they're like, I'm just not hungry. Or the opposite, where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just always starving. So when we find this sweet spot and when we balance our blood sugar, this leads to a healthy appetite signaling. So it's like ghrelin and leptin, our hormones that regulate the system, can be really off, especially if we are doing all the things we're going to talk about today that lead to unbalanced blood sugar. And so when we find this sweet spot, we have much healthier hunger signals and full signals, like our body's like, hey, I'm full, we're done. So why it's so hard today, right? You can even see down here in this corner, because we have so much processed food. And processed food is full of refined sugars, it's full of inflammatory oils, it's full of addictive chemicals. So if you were just to go and shop and not really pay attention to what you're buying, this is a reason it can be really hard, because these foods aren't necessarily supportive of balancing our blood sugar. We are also skipping our meals, right? Because we're so busy. We're just like, go, go, go. We've got expectations for ourselves or from the world. Like, we're just skipping meals and we're under eating. And this is one of the things I see so common, so often with the clients that I'm working with, is people aren't necessarily overeating. They're actually not eating enough food. And that alone, so like fasting, I'm not a big fan of fasting, because that leads to a stress response, which also leads to dysregulated blood sugar. And if we're skipping meals, this leads to wonky, crazy up and down with our blood sugar levels. And what blood sugar basically is it's just the body's ability to maintain a certain amount of glucose. So glucose is sugar from our food broken down in our bloodstream. So we have these amazing mechanisms that we're going to talk about, but when we're skipping meals, this throws this whole thing off and leads to a stress response in the body. So that can make it really hard. Then we have stress. So stress, we're all crazy stressed. If you're not stressed in 2025, like, good job, like, hats off to you. We are so overloaded with stress. And when we have stress, when our body perceives stress, we actually dump glucose into the bloodstream, and that spikes our blood sugar. And so it contributes to this imbalanced, dysregulated blood sugar. And then we have no education about nutrition. No one's talking about this stuff when we're kids. No one's telling us about balancing our blood sugar until we get to a point where we're like, I'm so tired. My mood's all over the place. I'm exhausted. I'm gaining weight. So awesome for you being here today, educating yourself and learning about this, because no one's really teaching us this stuff. So it is not your fault. We are literally living in a blood sugar imbalanced world. It's just this world caters to imbalanced blood sugar. So by being here today, you're going to learn how to do this so you can kind of jump over this hurdle. Right? We're just running around, busy, busy, busy. Everything's so fast paced. We've got processed foods. We're using our phones. We're comparing ourselves to others. And even that blue light from the phone, that stimulates cortisol that leads to a stress response. So you can just see it's not our fault. It's just we're living in a world that supports dysregulation of this system. So we're going to talk about how this actually works in the body. I find when we really understand how things work in the body, it's so much easier for us to make change and make new habits to support our health. So we eat the carbohydrate, right? So carbohydrates are things like fruit or noodles or potatoes or anything that has a sweet component is a carbohydrate. So we eat the carbohydrate, and then our body breaks down the carbs into glucose with digestive enzymes, with hydrochloric acid, with saliva in the mouth. So you can see the little chains there, and then they're broken down. These are my new thing. I learned how to sketch on my slide, which is super fun and super cool. And then glucose enters the bloodstream, right? So it's broken down. Glucose is now in the bloodstream, and the pancreas is then signaled to release insulin. And I put a little key here because insulin is basically the key that helps unlock the door to the cell to allow the glucose to go into the cells. So it's really important for this process to work because we want the glucose to go into the cell so that we can use it for energy later. Like here, what I said. So pancreas releases the insulin, and then the insulin moves the glucose into the cells, right? And then the blood sugar levels go back to normal. So this is how it works. And I probably could have put another one in here where when we're fasted, we actually have mechanisms and systems where it's stored in the liver, where we can then pull stored forms of glucose into the system so that we have energy when we are in a fasted state. So we can talk about, more here. So the key players in this blood sugar team are the brain. So the brain's always monitoring, like, okay, how much sugar is in the bloodstream? What's going on? Do I need to dump some stored glucose from the liver or from the muscles? What's going on? So the brain is a huge factor here. And then we have the pancreas. So the pancreas is all about insulin. So insulin is a hormone. It's a signaling molecule that signals, hey, there's sugar in the bloodstream. Let's get some insulin so that we can shuttle it into the cells. So I always think of a key when I'm thinking about the pancreas and insulin. And then we have the liver. So the liver is really important for blood sugar because it's our main storage organ for glucose. And we have a process when we are in a fasted state where we can actually dump stored glucose into the bloodstream to help us regulate in between meals. So the liver is really super important. And then we have this team player, the adrenals. So you can see the kidney there at the bottom. So that's our kidney. And then our adrenals sit on top of our kidneys. And our adrenals are our stress gland, and they produce cortisol, our main stress hormone. So what happens when we go without food or carbs for too long, then our adrenals come into play, because when we dip down too low, this is actually an emergency to the brain. And so we have this awesome system in our body where it's like, okay, emergency to the brain. And one of the roles of cortisol is it actually dumps out glucose into the bloodstream. So ideally, we're not tapping into the adrenals from day to day, but this is a great thing to have when you aren't eating and you need a boost of glucose in the bloodstream. We tap into the system, but we don't want to be tapping into the adrenals for regulating our blood sugar that much. This is what the liver's for. This is what this whole other system's for. But when we are on that roller coaster up and down, this is when we tap into the adrenals. And that's why blood sugar can be super hard on our adrenals and our stress response and our minerals. Because if we're often going hypoglycemic, so low blood sugar, this is asking the adrenals to step in and release cortisol to then release blood sugar. So that's like a last reserve. And what's happening today is we're using this system way more than is ideal. So that leads us to stress and the blood sugar. Like my little dude over here, he's running away. He's like, go, go, go. So when we have stress, so perceived stress, this could be financial stress. This could be stress from not eating enough. This could be stress from not being at a certain place in your career. This could be stress from having an alcoholic parent. I mean, you name it. It could be from sitting in traffic. Stress, then we have cortisol surge. So the adrenals, like we just spoke about, they release cortisol. Your body thinks you are in danger, right? And you need energy for that threat. So it's like, okay, body's in danger. Boom, release cortisol. Okay, boom. That's where we need to free up stored energy to fight off the threat. This is an emergency to the brain, right? So we're going to tap into whatever resources we have to deal with this threat at hand. And this is when our blood sugar spikes, right? So, oops, there we go. So yeah, stress. This is when we think we're in danger. This is an emergency to the brain. And our blood sugar spikes because we have cortisol dumping into the bloodstream. And that signals to the body to then release stored forms of glucose. So as a little recap, stress increases blood sugar. It's not always about food. So here's a little chart of what is regulated blood sugar, right? We're in between those lines, right? We're like, we go up, we go down. When it's dysregulated, it's spiking. So like, this is like you have your morning coffee with a croissant or a muffin, or you just have morning coffee, because caffeine stimulates the stress response, right? So now you know from watching this video that when you drink the caffeine, this dumps glucose into the bloodstream. And I was doing a glucose monitor for a little while, and when I drank coffee, I actually noticed, like, I was like, wow, my blood glucose just shot up. Like, that was so amazing for me. I was just like, wow, I didn't really grasp that until I started testing my own blood sugar. So we spike, and then our body overreacts, right? So it overreacts and tanks down because the insulin is released, and then it's like, oh gosh, okay, yeah, there's so much blood sugar, we gotta pull it in. And then that's where at the bottom here we have cravings. So here I put, we have tired, hangry. Down at the bottom left, brain fog, irritable, cranky. We need food like ASAP. We can be really lightheaded and grumpy. And then you go to the top, and if this blood sugar goes up and down for long enough, we can end up with high blood sugar, which leads to weight gain, being tired after meals, more infections, inflammation. So you can see how this can lead to a lot of side effects. And this is where we see, when we go to the crash, this is where we see the cravings, right? For sugar and caffeine specifically, because that's giving us energy and a boost. So if you're feeling like you have cravings in the day especially around like 3 or 4 o'clock, you're probably dealing with this blood sugar roller coaster. So what is this actually costing you, right? This is leading to things like fatigue, hormone imbalance, things like an unhealthy gut. If we have super dysregulated blood sugar, we aren't going to be able to have healthy digestion, because if we're in a stress state, so dysregulated blood sugar leads to a stressed state. So if we are in a stress state, we can't tap into rest and digest mode. So we won't have healthy digestion from top to tail, because digestion starts in the brain. And we're not going to be focused on digestion if we're focused on running from a stressor. So if there's one thing to take away from today, it's that if you are in this dysregulated blood sugar, you're often going to be in a stressed state, which basically shuts off all other, whether it's reproduction, digestion, immunity. So it's costing you more than just, the like cravings and the crash. It leads to things like fatigue and hormone imbalance, unhealthy gut, sluggish metabolism. So this can lead to weight gain, nutrient depletion, right? Because when we are on this roller coaster, this is really this is really expensive for the body. It taps out the body's nutrient stores. So it can lead to nutrient deficiencies. But the good news is we can change this. There's so much we can do. And just by being here today, you're going to learn exactly how to do that. And it's not actually that hard. It's just about being consistent. So how do we do this? So you can change your blood sugar, and seriously, the simple daily choices, they make such a big difference. You can just do a couple of these and it makes a massive, massive difference in all of the stuff we were just talking about. Better hormones, better gut health, improved mood, better sleep, weight balance, like your weight can either drop or gain, whatever your goals are. So we're going to take it from this imbalanced state, right? The fatigue, the cravings, the stress, and we're going to bring it into balance, right? Energy, mood, healing. Like here, when I'm going skiing and I'm stoked that I know how to do this because I have more energy to do the things that I love. And we do this through food, movement, stress, and sleep, right? We're going from imbalanced to balance. So food is a great way to balance your blood sugar. And we just have to learn how to balance our plate. So you can see here the non-starchy veggies, half the plate. So these are leafy greens. These are mushrooms, kale, arugula, anything that doesn't have a starchy component. So let's say this morning we had arugula or rocket. Last night we had cauliflower and some green beans. So things that don't have that starchy component. And then a quarter of the plate is your protein and a quarter of your plate is carbs. And then I like to sprinkle in the fat and the herbs and spices. So this is a really good framework to start with. And I'll just show you a plate here. So this is a meal from the other day. I made chicken meatballs, and then we had some potatoes, and then I had a salad, right? So it's a really good framework if you're a visual person to look at this chart, and just that's what can drive your food choices. It's a really good way to start this whole process of balancing your blood sugar. And eating breakfast. So I see so many good results from people just doing this one thing. So many people are not eating breakfast. So ideally we're eating breakfast within 1 hour of waking. Half an hour if you're really dysregulated with this blood sugar picture. This is your foundation, right? We want to have fat, protein, and fiber first. Yes, you can bring in some sweet potato and fruit in the morning, but we don't want to have that first thing in the morning. We don't want to have naked carbs. So that basically means don't just have the orange or just have the croissant or just have the muffin. That is setting up your whole day for this crazy blood sugar roller coaster. We want to start with fat, protein, and fiber. So no naked carbs. Always dress your carbs with one of these. And this really blunts that blood sugar spike and then reduces the crash. I don't know why I can't. Anyways, the next set. Oh yeah, so coffee after food. So because now you know that coffee and caffeine spikes your stress response, that also impacts your blood sugar. We want to just blunt that by having coffee after food. And this is actually like you get two birds with one stone because coffee on an empty stomach is also hard on digestion. So coffee after food is a really, really therapeutic thing to focus on if you're working on these pillars of health, especially blood sugar and digestion. So then we want to snack smart. So that just means basically, again, not eating any naked carbs. So you can see here I've got apples and some almond butter. We always dress our carbs with fat, protein, and fiber. This really blunts that spike to reduce the crash. Apple nut butter, protein balls, hard-boiled eggs, hummus and carrots. We're just diversifying our snacks and moving away from just the cookies, the muffins, the carby-rich stuff. If you want to have some dark chocolate, great. Just have some nuts with it. Add protein and veggies to your smoothie. So instead of having like an all-fruit smoothie, just add a beef protein isolate, add your whey protein, add some frozen cauliflower, add some zucchini. This really helps bring in the fiber and the protein to balance your blood sugar. So another one is moving our body. This is so important for blood sugar because, well, first of all, walking after meals, that actually uses up the glucose that's floating around in your bloodstream. So you can just go for a 5 to 10 minute walk and make a massive difference. or you do a couple squats, or even do calf raises. Like, it's amazing. You don't need that much, but as long as you're moving your body, you're going to be using up that glucose floating in your bloodstream. And then I love this one. So I put a thing of me at the gym, because when you build your muscles, you actually are building space for the glucose to be stored as glycogen. So if you build your muscles, you will have a better ability to balance your blood sugar. And then we want to stretch, yoga, breathe, any type of nervous system regulation. Movement it doesn't always have to be so chaotic, and exercise and go, go, go. I am guilty of this, where I love extreme exercise, extreme movement. And so sometimes it's important for me to remember that movement isn't always have to be high intensity. It can be stretching, it can be yoga, it can just be breathing. So just move your body and you will balance your blood sugar. We are managing stress, right? So we want to breathe. One of the best ways to breathe is increase your exhale. So let's say you inhale for 4 and exhale for 6. This helps you tap into a parasympathetic state when your exhale is longer than your inhale. And then rest. Just literally rest. Put your legs up the wall. Take some time off. One of my favorite things to think of is like, how can I be still? How can I create stillness within rest? So not like resting scrolling on your phone, but resting actually and being truly calm and peaceful, and putting your legs up the wall and inviting stillness into your rest. Maybe it's just sleep, right? We might just need more sleep. Going out in nature really helps regulate our circadian rhythm, which will help to regulate our stress response. Nature is so, so healing. So just putting your feet on the ground, using nature as a stress management tool. And then joy, do the things that you love. This is such a beautiful thing. Anything that brings you a smile, laughter, this is such a great way to downregulate cortisol and upregulate things like oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin and all the happy, feel-good sensations in the body, which support our blood sugar. And then our mindset. This is a newer sort of thing that I've been getting into in the last 2 years, where mindset as in subconscious reprogramming, where what are the patterns that are looping in your head, and are they causing a stress response? Right? So there's a lot of tools, which I like NLP and subconscious reprogramming, even things like EMDR or internal family systems. All these sort of start to look at the internal landscape of, is there something going on with your mindset that's driving a stress response? And when we start to reframe those negative thought patterns into positive thought patterns, this actually helps us calm the nervous system. So this really helps us manage stress, which also helps us balance our blood sugar. So we just have a couple more. So better sleep equals better blood sugar. We have less cravings. So when we have wonky sleep cycles, we actually have more cravings. So the better sleep we get, the less cravings we have. This lowers our stress response. We have smaller glucose spikes. There's tons of research on this stuff. And it regulates our appetite signaling. So when we have better sleep, and this is another pillar of health, but we just have much better chance at regulating our blood sugar and less cravings, more energy, less stress, and better metabolism. It also boosts our energy. And so the payoff, right? There's so many benefits to balancing your blood sugar, and that's why this is the first one in this series, because it leads to so much and it has such a beautiful ripple effect, because it leads to steady energy and clearer mood and calmer mind, fewer cravings. And I put this picture of me surfing because for me, all this stuff, I always have that as the driver. I want to be able to go do the things out in the world with my friends and do the things I love. And if I have energy and a clearer, calmer mind and healthier mood and less cravings, I'm going to be a happier person. I'm going to be able to do the things that I love with the people that I love. And also balance our hormones. So when we have wonky, whether it's hormonal cycles, whether we have food craving issues, whether we have adrenal issues, anything, thyroid issues, we always start with blood sugar because it is like the grandmother that filters out and ripple effects out into everything else. When we balance our blood sugar, it is such a huge tack that we're pulling out of the heel that helps to balance our hormones. and it accelerates our healing, like I said before. So if you're struggling with healing some part of your body, make sure that you have balanced blood sugar, because this will support the rest and digest, nourishment, and healing mode. So that's it for today, but I wanted to just put in here, I have created an app, a free app, to help you implement these things and put everything all into one place. So if you want to go deeper and you're ready to take action, then click the link below where you can sign up to get the app. And it's got foods, we've got environmental factors, we've got a nervous system button. So this is my sort of gift to you guys, because I want this stuff to be easier to implement, because sometimes you want to refer back, but you're like, I got to dig through the emails or the whatever, Instagram. So the goal of this is to just make balancing your blood sugar and becoming healthier easier. And then if you want to dig even deeper, my first step always with working with me is testing your minerals, because we want to see how your body is handling stress. And with a hair tissue mineral analysis, if we don't have certain minerals, we're going to have a really hard time balancing our blood sugar. And we can also see like where you are in the stress picture, because certain minerals will be sky high or certain minerals will be low depending on what your stress response is. And so that's always the next step. So if you want to test your minerals, let me know. Or you can check out the podcast. So the Gut Health Jack podcast, we dive into all sorts of stuff. So go check out that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And that's it for today. So if you want to come say hi, come join me over on Instagram or TikTok at Gut Health Jack. And that's it for today. Balance your blood sugar and you balance your life. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.